This is episode 553 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing, president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. I'm very pleased to be joined this week by Andrew Handel. He is Director of Education and Workforce Development in that task force at the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC. Welcome, Andrew, to Tipping Point, New Mexico.
Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah, well, you put together, along with some of your colleagues over there, a excellent report that was released back in September, the State Education Freedom Index. And it's described as a 50-state guide to parental empowerment. And you did this on behalf of ALEC. So before we get too far into your report, talk a little bit about yourself and the organization you represent, ALEC.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I am the director for the Education and Workforce Development Task Force at ALEC, which stands for the American Legislative Exchange Council. We're the nation's largest nonpartisan membership organization. We've got both public sector members, which are state lawmakers, and we also have private sector members, which can be nonprofits, corporations, foundations. And, we're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. And so for 50 years, ALEC has been bringing together folks from the public sector side and the private sector side to figure out what the best policies are in free markets, federalism, and limited government. So really excited to head up our education workforce development efforts. And yeah, as you mentioned with our new report, the Index of State Education Freedom, we're excited for that. It's the first year we've done this report. We're planning to re-up it annually, but we really wanted it to be a resource, not just for policymakers and our members, but for parents at large in terms of understanding, what types of educational options are available to them in their state.
Well, of course, Jonathan Williams has been a frequent guest on our show here, Tipping Point, New Mexico, and we typically talk about rich states, poor states, with him. That's a report that they do every year. And, any report like this, I guess one of the critical factors has to be that there is some level of change every year, because it would probably be a little bit pointless to write a report that says the same basic thing year after year. Obviously, there's going to be trend lines and things that are relatively consistent. This is your inaugural report. Is it safe to say that some exciting things have been happening in the area of education freedom that have caused you to kind of jump into this space with an annual report on that issue?
Yeah, definitely. I think, since over the past 2 to 3 years or so, with COVID, with the COVID pandemic, and we've seen a lot of tremendous movement in this area with education freedom. I think parents woke up. They started realizing what's being taught to their kids in public school. They started understanding, maybe hearing some things that they thought weren't age appropriate. Things along those lines. So, we're like I mentioned before, we're excited to get this report out, and it's I think a good mechanism for us to capture all of the positive movement that we've seen over the years.